I'm good too. I'm good too. So I'm a Hindu, as you can tell from the name, uh, and
Cool.
obviously we have like you must have heard of millions and thousands of different gods we have.
Yeah. I'm actually reading a book. It is the early literature of the East, and it's volume 9 is on Brahmanism and literature of India. It's very fascinating. I'm
Wait.
really
Does
enjoying
it
it.
say? Does it? Did it use the word Brahmanism?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The book is pure propaganda.
Okay. Well, I'm still gonna read it.
There's nothing called Brahmanism.
Well, this book was
It's
published
like
like
like, imagine tomorrow a bunch of aliens attack Earth. And they see that, okay, you know what, these scientists hold so much power, whatever they say people are blindly believing it. So they try to, you know what, and they come with an abrahamic mentality saying, okay, we are the only true religion. So they see that the scientists hold so much power, people are believing whatever they say, and even though they are showing things with research, so let's vilify the scientists and say only our god is true. So and then they write a book called sciencism or some nonsense like that. So that's the term Brahmanism. A bunch of outside invaders coming to India and seeing that, okay, these Brahmins who are basically scientists hold so much power, people believe them but blindly. And because as long as the Brahmins exist and they have all this amazing knowledge, people are not going to believe our one God religion or whatever we are trying to preach. So let's vilify them. So that's exactly what happened with India, which is still
well,
going on.
I agree with you that so in the introduction it talks about how this volume of literature was compiled and stuff, and it talks about what you're saying. It is from an outside perspective looking in, and it was compiled over 100 years ago, so some of the thinking is maybe a little outdated. Um, but there's very little commentary in the book except for each section has an introduction. They do a really good job of just letting the text sort of speak for themselves, and
Yeah,
I'm
but
enjoying
text,
the literature for what it is.
the only way you can actually read the Indian text is if you know Sanskrit, then go back to the original text. There has been so much propaganda you cannot even believe it. That's the reason why when I said the word Hindu, people automatically assume like millions of gods and blind faith and rituals and all that nonsense, which is not at all what Hinduism is.
Well, you tell
So
me you tell me what Hinduism is all about because I'm not trying to come up with my own opinions. I'm just trying to experience different things. So you tell me what I should know about it.
okay, so Hinduism is basically, the final goal of Hinduism to begin with is to experience the truth by yourself,
Okay.
not secondhand information like have fun is just talking about how going to Australia and experiencing Australia yourself, right?
Right.
So that's pretty much the point of view of a Hindu.
I can
You
totally
go
agree
out,
with
you go about studying things, you go about understanding perspectives, and you go about following a roadmap that somebody else has set for you. But you are in the end, you are supposed to actually reach Australia and look at it for yourself instead of just taking secondhand information and imbibing it and living by it as if there's no other way to the truth. And Hinduism actually recommends like multiple different parts, like whatever phase you are in right now. Like for example, if you're a logical thinking person, faith is not something that comes easily to you. I'm talking about my position. This is exactly how I was.
that. Right.
There is a path for you. If you are a faith-based person who can like put their faith on an entity or an energy system even without asking questions, that is a different path for you. So you get to pick and choose what path you want to follow. There are benchmarks when you follow the path to make sure that you are, heading somewhere instead of just like being stagnant and blindly believing things. And eventually you do reach the, goal. The goal is called moksha, the word that we are looking for. In English, you would call it self enlightenment or self realization. And there are like, I think Hinduism has a record number of, the number of people who come out self enlightened when they follow it. And the core of Hinduism is basically five different paths. You want me to describe them for you?
Sure, yeah, I would love it.
Okay, so the goal of Hinduism, like I said, is moksha. The other word for moksha is yoga.
Okay.
Not the Hollywood yoga that you might know of, like people doing poses and shit.
Well, I know that
Downward
there's
dog. That's
yoga is like different categories of yoga. It's like it's a teaching, right? It doesn't necessarily mean one thing. It depends on the
no
type of.
yoga. The word yoga literally means union with the divine.
Oh, okay. All right.
And when you say union, it's like uh, again, it's self-realization. Once you realize the truth, that's yoga. And though the union itself is called yoga, the paths to get there is also called yoga. You know, so and there are
Okay.
five major paths of yoga: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Raja Yoga. I don't know if you have heard these terms before. It's like majority
I
Hindus they don't know either.
I've heard them, and I know there's different types of yoga, but I'm not very familiar with them.
Okay, so Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of faith. This is the path that you kind of take. Okay, you know what? Let me go to Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is the yoga of ritual. Every morning, if you have a ritual of, say, doing the different poses or doing different, meditation techniques, breathing, this, that, that's all like Kriya. Kriya literally means ritual that you perform every day. So,
Oh,
so all
okay.
the modern yoga, the Hollywood yoga that you see, uh, that celebrities partake in, it might come under Kriya Yoga. But again, like the end goal is to realize the truth. It's not just to stay fit. So it goes beyond just staying fit. So that is the Kriya Yoga. The second yoga would be Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of faith. In this system of yoga, you get to pick and choose from the n number of different gods, if you can call it that,
Okay.
because the way we understand gods is not the same as the Western understanding of gods. The way we understand gods is basically energy systems, principles of the world. Like
Okay.
if you take up the principle of creation. So we put all that attributes into a human form. It's easier for people to understand, and you put
Mhm.
all your faith in it.
Okay.
So, and there is a system called Ishta Devta, which basically means you can create your own god if you really want to. If you don't connect with all the millions of gods that you have already, and you say, you know what, McDonald's, the McDonald's figurine is my god. Like a Hindu would say, you know what, so be it, man. Bring your figurine into our temple. Maybe we'll make a separate space for you. So that's the
That's
reason
cool.
why we have millions of gods. People came up with their own, creations and whatnot. So it's not because like we actually had identified it. Some people genuinely connect with an imagery or an iconography. So they were
So
like, you know what, let's go with that.
one lecture or one talk I heard on Hinduism about the different many gods is that they're all an expression or a different facet of the one supreme source and like a characteristic, and then people gravitate to that characteristic, and like what you're saying, they
Mhm.
sort of embody that characteristic. So it's not necessarily like there's millions of gods. It's all aspects of the divine source. Is that accurate or no?
You explained it way better than me. I was kind of trying to get there. Yeah.
I was just
But
explaining what
but
I
here's the
heard.
thing though.
So
Here's the thing though. Like if you identify with a bunch of aspects and if you create your god, or I mean, all gods are created in the end. Like it's not our, it's not the main source. If you think of a god, if you think of an attribute, we have all created it with our limited understanding, with our limited five different organs. The way we perceive the world with our five different organs, which from a yogic term is actually very limited. So eventually, you are talking about one of the millions of gods that uh, people have created, even if you don't actually think it is, but that is the truth. I'm sorry. The only way you can actually perceive the one creator is by going and uh, connecting to it yourself, which I have not seen a lot of religions of the world do. You know, it,
yeah,
it can tell you that you are doing that, but you're not really doing that. You are just basically thinking and talking to yourself.
I see.
Anyways, so. So that is Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of faith. So I covered two, yoga of ritual and yoga of faith. The third one
Okay.
is Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga literally means the yoga of knowledge. I come from this tradition. I mean, I don't come from this tradition. I picked up this tradition because I used to be a hardcore atheist earlier, and logic spoke to me. So in this form of yoga, you basically logic your way to the truth. You dissect, you try to understand. There's a concept called like neti, which literally means you're denying everything that cannot be the truth, and to eventually end up at the truth.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
like
this is.
my last guest was saying, he had a whole system of taking things away from the pile of ideas to get to the truth eventually.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah,
I
yeah.
like that.
I was listening to it. Everything he said made sense. I mean, it looks like he's a Hindu. I mean, he just have to admit it.
Well,
Anyways,
I mean, I share a lot of what you're saying resonates a lot with me too. So I mean, I've
I
been
mean, the
accused.
word Hindu itself does not mean anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, the original term would be Sanatana Dharma, which literally means the eternal path. I mean, you can take it a step further and you can call it eternal science, because these five different paths that I'm talking about will apply to you no matter which country you're from, no matter what race you are, no matter what timeline you belong to.
Right.
So, anyways, so the three paths I told you, the Jnana Yoga, which is the best path actually, I think, for today's day and age, because the modern education system forces you to kind of logically dissect everything. We have a saying in yogic systems. It actually predicted that, in yoga, the old times people, if you give a person a flower, the person would try to understand the experience of the flower. Like, what does it mean to be me experiencing the flower? You know,
Okay.
that was basically the scientific approach of that time. Today, if you give a person a flower, he would dissect the shit out of it, break it down into small pieces, and you don't really have a flower anymore, but you know a thing or two about you know what materials come to make the flower. So it's a
Right.
completely different way of doing science compared to what earlier yogis used to do. And like I said, they predicted this. So Jnana Yoga fits right in when people are thinking like this. So these are the three types of yogas. The fourth one would be, what did I miss? Bhakti, Kriya, Jnana, Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga literally means yoga of action. You
Oh, okay.
make your very, yeah, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah. Uh, karma of yoga of action. Okay.
Yeah, actually, the word karma itself actually means action or memory, or sorry, action or the memory related to the action. You
Okay.
know, imagine the whole world is like a huge computer simulation system, and everything works on the memory stored, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm saying like it's so obvious. Imagine you're playing a huge game. How in the game, like every step you take, every action you make, it's stored somewhere, right?
Right.
So think of that as real life. So that memory that is stored for every action, that would be karma.
Okay.
We understand it as cause and effect, but it's not as simple. It has more to do with that. Anyways, so karma yoga basically is the yoga of action. You make your very living, the way you live, the way you conduct your daily life, an attempt to reach the higher truth. You try to be more selfless. You try to be more helping. You try to be more uh, charitable and stuff like that. I think this is something you cannot avoid. Every person who is living life, they have to partake in some kind of karma yoga. And if you don't really do that, you end up becoming a capitalist. or
Well, everyone's taking part of it, whether they realize it or not, because everybody
yes,
is.
yes,
I mean, it's part of life. You're acting this life out, whether you're conscious of it or you're just mindlessly doing it.
yeah. But in karma yoga, you have to be conscious of it. You have to be very conscious of what your actions are and how it's affecting the world around you and stuff like that.
Right.
So
That's the
if you're
discipline.
not doing it, you're not really doing yoga then. And the last one would be the Raja Yoga, which is the way of the mystic. You
Okay.
know, So in the way of the mystic, they say that mostly you end up here if you have done a lot of work in your past lives. Yes, we know there is past life. We don't believe in it. We know there is.
Okay.
But but there is a lot of people do end up here too because they end up meditating. They end up having some experiences which kind of open up their minds to levels that not the normal people does not have. So, but Raja Yoga is not recommended for everybody. It's something that people end up at by themselves. The way
Yeah.
of the mystic, like I said, people have their own experiences and stuff, and they try to make sense of it. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the five paths. And take any faith in the world, take any, like I said, science in the world, you would actually see that they kind of fit into any of these paths.
So let me ask you, I mean, from an outsider, this could seem very complicated, but I suppose when you're familiar with it, it becomes less overwhelming. So I'm an outsider, so I'm going to say it to me it sounds complicated, but not overwhelming. But let me ask you the question because because okay, the way that you described it, the different layers of reality, the different layers of focus in reality have been have been intricately thought out and kind of turned into its own discipline. That intricacy or complexity of beingness, is that something that is makes it easier to grow and mature, or is it more of a challenge because there's so many different aspects to it?
I think it's easy because you get to make your own decisions. You get to pick and choose. One day you
Okay.
could be performing Kriya Yoga, and the other day you'll be like, you know what, let me read through the material that the Jnana Yoga people have. So
Okay.
eventually, all the dots will connect in your head, and like you will kind of make sense of things. And this is exactly how real life works. One day you'll be at the gym hitting it out and trying to
Yeah.
figure out how best to live your life. Another day you're reading an amazing book which gives you great insights in your the way you live life and stuff.
So
So
when I was still in the Bible study group, kind of working my way out of being a Christian, I bought some really basic books. One was on Buddhism and one was on Hinduism because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was out there. And the Buddhist book had a little bit more information on like the philosophy and like the day-to-day stuff, and the Hinduism, the way it was written was sort of less informative to me. But I definitely got the sense that they're very much, well, they share a lot of the common history and a lot of common teachings. What would be, in your sense, the key differences between Hinduism and Buddhism?
the key difference would be that there is nothing called Hindu Buddhism
There's what?
because the Buddha never created a religion. It's the people who followed him who were Hindus who came up with this whole idea of rituals and practices around Buddha
Uh
using the
huh.
name of Buddha. And
Yeah.
that's what became Buddhism. Buddha actually never had any teachings. If you went to the Buddha, he would say, you know what, this is the meditation technique that I use to realize the truth. And if you ask him a different lot of questions, he would be like, how does it matter? I'm telling you exactly how to reach Australia. Go and find it out yourself.
Right.
So all the teachings and everything, it came from his students who wanted to maybe create a religion, or maybe they wanted to set up rituals into people's lives and stuff like that. But Buddha
So
never taught any of this.
So, laying aside the sort of the origin stories of Buddhism, the way Buddhism as a lifestyle or a philosophy or a way of being, are there dramatic differences between Buddhism and
No,
Hinduism?
no,
Okay.
no.
Yeah.
It would come under any of these yogas, like I said, it's not like you pick up any of these yoga and like stick to it forever. You can't take up other path, or that you pick up one type of yoga and say, you know what, all the other paths are wrong. No, it's just like modern day science. A student of literature acknowledges that string theory is true, or the fact that there is value in that. He goes about his life and he even respects the string theorist. He doesn't really care. If he decides to learn string theory, he would go about learning it. Same
Hmm.
way, if just because you're following one type of yoga, you don't discredit other types. In fact, um, say somebody's on the path of bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of faith, and he's not really getting any results. He's like, this blind faith thing is not for me. So there is a lot of backup of bhakti yoga from the point of, yeah, yoga of logic. Like today, if you tell me, okay, this is a god, you have to have blind faith in it, yeah, and eventually the god will show you the truth. I'm not a person of faith. It doesn't come to me at all. Like even if I try, it
Yeah.
just does not arrive inside me. So I have to logic my way through that whole shit. So now, after reading a lot about how faith works, and it's basically, if you look at modern science and modern medicine system, you can tell that a huge chunk of modern medicine is placebo. Did you
Yeah.
know this? Right?
Yeah. Placebo
So a
is
yogi,
amazing.
yes, exactly. So a yogi would say, you know what? Okay, I get it. You have done your research and everything. Let me go back and reverse engineer how the mind makes the placebo work. You know, instead
Right.
of just going with it, the yogi will try to reverse engineer, and he'll try to like, okay, let's get this effect without the placebo to begin with. Which
Right.
is where a lot of faith comes in, and so we cannot discredit faith in that sense, even if it doesn't make sense to us. You know. So
It's
yeah,
really
all these
interesting.
different yogas complement each other.
I'm trying to think of, okay, so Hinduism is a religion that doesn't necessarily need to have faith, like what you're talking about. That's a separate, that's a thing all by itself. I'm trying to think of if Christianity took the same approach, like you could be a Christian and have no faith, what would that look like?
It would
That would
look
be
like,
weird. That would be weird.
yeah, I mean, because see, the thing is, like I gave you that example about aliens attacking and vilifying the scientists.
Right,
That's exactly what Hinduism is. The the aliens came to Earth. They found all these different practices. They found that we love building, dig shaped, huge, spacecrafts, and say,
yeah.
okay, look at these dig worshippers. Never mind. It's a stupid joke. So that's literally the approach of the Western way of looking at Hinduism. They didn't understand what we are doing. They didn't understand. For example, when you look at what is perceived as idols from outside, it'll look stupid, right? Like, I mean, I remember I used to be an atheist. I used to make fun of Hindus.
Huh.
So, but then I realized, I kind of, while I was doing my studies about how faith-based religions work, I realized that when you go into one of these temples, the atmosphere is created in such a way that it affects the basic vibration of your being. We are all energies in the end. We are all
Right.
energy systems. So when you go, the a Hindu temple is not a place of worship. We don't have a concept of worship in Hinduism. We don't have a concept of prayer in Hinduism. We just go there to soak in that energy. So when you bow down in front of an idol, you're basically putting your ego aside to become receptive to the energy that is being created there with different kinds of rituals and play of elements and play of what do you call it, practices. So an energy system is created there. You just have to go there and put your ego aside and soak it in. That's all people are supposed to do. Prayer and
So,
worship is not part of Hinduism.
so the icons of Hinduism act like kind of like an energetic computer program that if you get close enough and you can sync up to it, then you can participate in that vibration.
No, I was talking about the temple system, why temples are designed, the way they're designed, what kind of rituals are there. It could be like, even if you don't believe in the particular deity that is in that temple, if you go there, just sit there for 10 minutes with your eyes closed, put aside your ego, you will imbibe those energies within you. The idea of worship, if it can call it that, like I said, there's no concept of worship in Hinduism. The
Uh,
idea has more to do with the person worshiping than what you're worshiping itself.
right.
You know?
Okay.
So, like you said, you're taking up different properties of the creator. You're trying
Yeah.
to imbibe the properties within yourself. That the potential is already there. You're just trying to invoke it.
So, look, okay, so let's say that I have picked a deity and there's sort of an icon that is accepted of that deity. and there are qualities of that deity. So when I go, let's say I have a statue that embodies that deity. So when I go to bow down, I'm setting aside my ego. I'm not praying or worshiping the icon, but am I contemplating what the icon represents so those qualities will become resonating with me? Is that how that works?
Absolutely. Like I said, you put my own words better than me.
I don't know.
That's
I'm just
exactly
trying
what
to
it is.
understand it. I'm just
No, that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it
okay.
is.
So
Plus,
that's
like
the
I said,
purpose
the
of the
temple,
so
yes,
the
like if you
purpose.
have sorry, go ahead.
I was just trying to. So the purpose of the temple and the icons and the imagery and everything is to give your consciousness something to anchor to, so that when you set your ego aside, then you're resonating with it. So yeah. So the whole thing isn't about worship. Okay, I'm starting to understand it.
Because the idea of worship, when I look at it, it's a more fear and reward based approach. You pray to it, there's a good chance he'll not burn you forever, and then there's a good chance he might even reward you with virgins and whatnot. So we don't have those concepts. We don't fear our gods. We build a relationship with our gods. We love our gods. We revere our gods. We respect our gods. There is
Hmm.
no negative emotion attached there in any way.
I'm
So the
just
word God fearing does not apply to Hindus. We don't
right.
fear our gods.
So I'm thinking if I, with my United States American religious mind that's been programmed in me, I became Hindu, I think I would have a very hard time loving and like going through the steps of what we just said because in my mind those steps would automatically I would have to reprogram my mind to disconnect the idea of worship of that being a deity. I would have to do a lot of work in order for that to work for me because of the different culture, the different way I was brought up. I
That's
think.
absolutely true. That's why I said like the Western mind should actually be more into Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Forget everything. Forget all faith-based systems. I have a Western mind. The faith does not come to me at all. Like even I tried giving it a fair shot, giving it a fair shot. Did not work
Yeah.
for me. So I was like, you know what? Let me just skip the whole thing. I directly went into the knowledge part of things.
It's
I'm
so
here
interesting.
advocating for faith, but I'm not part of it at all. I don't worship gods or anything.
Okay, 2 points that are so interesting. Okay, so in the book of Owaspy, it talks about how in order to sort of grow and mature humans, we were given idols so that we could learn how to worship or learn how to connect to the divine. And then at some point, when that skill was sort of developed and the idols were taken away, now we had the skill to go directly to the creator. But the other part that's really interesting is there's this story of a family where the husband and wife and all of the kids were very, um, I guess you would say, faith based. And they had very strong faith to the point of being able to sort of see divine energies and angels and stuff like that. But the last son didn't have that ability. He was all intellect, right? And he was really bummed out because all of his family were able to communicate, with divine entities, but he couldn't. And the revelation was that his ability to not see the divine was just as valuable as their ability to see the divine. And then it gave a bunch of examples of why that was just as valuable. And it never really struck home to me the truth of that story until this conversation. That's really interesting
Hmm.
because
Yeah, I
he
get it.
could approach things in a different way that they couldn't do, and so it
See, people are
contributed to the
people are
overall
wired
message.
differently. People are wired differently. Saying that
Right,
this approach would work for everybody by itself make your religion wrong because you don't know how life works. You don't know the basics of how life works. When you claim that this is the only path, right there, it's a wrong, or I mean, it's coming from a wrong point, or coming from
right.
the wrong God, if you can call it that, because He has no understanding of human life. So, from a Jnana Yoga perspective, I would reject it right at the word go.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And again, like I said, I cannot explain the intricacies of faith because I'm not part of that whole side of things. But I can logic my way in through as to how the whole thing works. Like I said, I when I've
Yeah.
understood how temples work, how they create reverberations. When I talked about energy space, I'm talking about reverberations that is within the temple space, with all the mantras and rituals and the play of elements, like I talked about. Once you go
Mm-hmm.
and sit there, like I said, if you are somebody who performs, say, any kind of yoga or meditation, if you have a regular practice, it basically opens up your system into be more receiving. And then if in that condition, if you just go to a temple and sit down and meditate for 10 seconds, 10 minutes, you will
Yeah.
actually feel that there is something going on here. This is something I personally experienced. I had to go and do this experiment myself to understand, okay, you know what, temples are not just places of worship as to how people talk about it.
So what
And
did you feel? Like how did it change the energy inside of you or your consciousness? What did it make you feel?
I mean, I can tell you, but it won't make any difference in you because you have to go and see it yourself.
Well, I would like to.
For me, for me, it almost felt like my spirits were getting recharged.
Mm,
I came out feeling a sense of calm and satisfaction that I cannot like explain in words, if
hmm.
you can call it that. So I was like, you know what, this is pretty cool.
So is that something you do now on a regular basis, or was that kind of just a
No, the
one?
place I live in, we don't have any temples around, so I kind of
Oh,
miss it. I tried to recreate the whole thing at home, but it's not working the way it should.
yeah. It would be hard to recreate something like that.
Yep, 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 yep.
That's really
So
interesting.
let me tell you my perspective, like a Jnana Yogi's perspective of what is going around.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, okay. So here you talked about how there is only one creator. From Jnana, I'm from the school called Advaita Vedanta
Okay.
of inside Jnana Yoga. Like in all these different kinds of yoga, there are like millions of semi schools, sub schools, as you can imagine. So
Yeah.
inside Jnana Yoga, I'm from the Advaita Vedanta perspective. Advaita literally means non-dualist. So I go one step further back, saying there is not even one creator. All of reality is creation. I mean, the creator and the creation are not two separate beings.
I would
The
agree with you
create
on that, actually. I think that that's very true.
This is why I told you, like, when you use the word creator and try to put attributes to that one creator, you're doing it with your limited five senses. The limited
Yes.
five senses do not really encapsulate all of that,
Exactly. Yes, I agree
into
with that.
words. Yeah. So this is our Advaita Vedanta, what do you call it, perspective of looking at things. And it's not empty just looking at things. Like there are so many practices involved which can give you that experience of this non-duality. Like when people get say this, they when people say they are enlightened, what they are saying is basically I perceive the fact that creator and creation is not two different things.
Hmm.
It's like there are different levels of consciousness. You woke up to the super consciousness.
Yeah. Well, when people ask me who's the creator, it's like, well, English, any language, is not going to be sufficient with names and titles and labels and categories to categorize the creator. I mean, what you just said is perfect. Like the creation and the creator are like, a reflection of each other. We are a reflection of the creator, and it's like it's not two separate things. It's a movement of us all moving together. You know, trying, getting to the source, I guess.
Yep, yep. So in the yogic term of things, we actually limit. We look at this. I talked about the five different senses, limiting your uh, perception, so to speak. So the super consciousness is basically having this human experience using these five senses. So the moment you go beyond these five senses, you start perceiving what you really are, what your
Mm-hmm.
true nature really is. So when a person gets enlightened, they're not getting enlightened into some outside knowledge. They're getting enlightened about their own true nature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I would agree with that.
I can actually break it down more if you want to, like, if you want to.
Well,
There's so
before
much
you
to
do,
talk
I was
about.
just going to say that I have had some experiences that are totally sort of like unexplainable where I felt more connected and more in tune with the true reality of myself, with reality around me, and like the true relationship of everything. Instead of me being this body and this mind, I really felt connected to the present moment as somebody just sort of captaining a ship in this moment, and I felt connected to not the physical, but I felt like I was connected to oneness while being in the body, and that was really interesting. That was really interesting.
It's amazing. So
Yeah,
again, like yeah, the end goal is to like try to stay in that state all the time and
yeah,
operate from there and go about conducting your daily life from there, which basically makes you a karma yogi because you know that the higher truth is something else, but you are doing your best with the things given to you.
mm-hmm, yeah,
The amazing thing about a proper realized person and somebody who has had these experiences, the difference is that the proper realized person knows how to stay in that state all the time and then go about conducting their activities from that point of view. It's almost like looking at the world from a third person perspective,
mm-hmm,
yet
yeah,
realizing that okay, I have this body and mind, so let me utilize it.
yeah, yeah. That was really interesting. It does for me. It takes a lot of work to kind of tap into that, and it's not work like effort. It's work like lack of effort. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Just letting it
Coming to
happen.
this is so separate. Yep, yep. So absolutely. But that doesn't mean like you don't have responsibility. You're still given this body and mind. The body and mind
Right.
follows rules. You know, the rules of nature is something the creator would not want being discredited.
Well, what was really interesting when I was going through that, I was able to have more control over my mind and my body. Like, for example, when I was trying to go to sleep, I was, from a third person perspective, operating my mind and body and telling my mind to be quiet, my body to go to sleep. And I went to sleep so quick. It was like I was literally flipping switches. That's crazy.
This is actually amazing that you said that because it's true.
Yeah,
The thing is like when you are inside the body, when you are limited by the body, you are also limited by your mind, you know. So
yeah,
even if your body is capable of doing things, your mind will be like afraid and tell you, "Oh no, you cannot sleep. You have to think about this shit." It'll take you on a journey of different thoughts. But if you look at it from an outside perspective, you tell your mind to shut up,
yeah,
it shuts up.
yeah. It's
That's one of
crazy.
the reasons why we meditate.
Mm-hmm.
The core point of meditation is not self-realization. It's to get your mind and body to like shut up for like 2 seconds. Let me actually look at myself, and
Mm-hmm.
then the whole point is to take control of your mind and body instead of the mind and body controlling you.
Yeah, yeah. It's
The point is
that.
focus, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of
So
lot of
this is
wisdom.
Hinduism.
What's that?
So this is Hinduism. This is what
I know, right?
majority. The funny thing is like this whole what do you call it explanation that I gave you. I should actually be explaining my own fellow Hindus who go about calling themselves Hindus, but they have zero clue what Hinduism is about.
Oh,
So this is
so
the
what?
reason why we are very underrepresented.
So what would be the misrepresentations you find common amongst sort of the Hindu posers.
The common misconception is that they also think we are a faith-based religion. They also think like, in fact, I've seen Hindus talk about trying to justify why we have so many gods by saying things like, okay, you think there is only one god, but we think there is multiple gods. They're not wrong in that sense, but they don't understand where this thought is coming from. The
Yeah.
core, like majority Hindus would not even be able to tell you what the different five types of yogas are.
Hmm.
That's one of the
Really?
reasons I became an atheist, because the faith-based thing did not work with me. I was like, what is this worshipping a monkey nonsense going on? Like, it's so stupid.
Hmm.
But then now I know.
Well, it's interesting you say that most Hindus don't understand what Hinduism is. That's why I left Christianity because most Christians haven't a clue about the real true teachings of Christ or even the real even really what the Bible is as a work of literature. And I was so frustrated because the more I learned and I was trying to talk and converse with other Christians, the more they looked at me like I was a heretic. It's like, I'm not a heretic. I'm the one studying and I'm the one learning about this stuff. And you guys are more focused on your pop culture American version of Christianity than what the truth is. And yeah, so that's probably true amongst most groups. There's always going to be the common group, the mass that doesn't know what they're talking about, and then there's going to be people who have studied it and really understood the essence of it.
I mean, I've had similar journey like rejecting and having debates with prominent people of my religion and then rejecting the whole thing to begin with. But what
Right.
really attracted me was the more I started studying, the more I realized that there is no place for blind faith or belief in Hinduism.
That's
Like
new.
you're not blindly
That's new. I've
believing
never
in
heard of
things.
that.
Yep, yep. There's actually no room. In fact, every scripture that you read, it clearly emphasizes on the fact that if this path is not for you, if in this path you're not meeting the benchmarks, if not seeing the road signs when you go ahead, you're supposed to quit the whole thing and try another way. Which even like I said, most Hindus do not know about this thing. By the way, if you want to read about Hinduism, I suggest not reading about this Brahmin propaganda stuff. I would suggest a very good book. It's called Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. It's a tiny book you can finish in one afternoon. It will give you like, uh, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm looking up something in a book.
So yeah, I'm
Go.
giving you a book recommendation you can pick up and read through in one
Yeah, let me write
afternoon
it.
itself.
Let me write it down. Oh, where'd my pen go? Okay. Okay, what was the name of the book?
It's the fifth yoga basically, Raja Yoga, Rajayoga. Wait, I'll write it down in the comments if you want. So me,
Raja Yoga. Okay.
I just wrote down the author's name and the book's name in the comments.
Oh, okay. So Swami.
He was best friends with Tesla.
Oh, whoa, really?
Yeah, and they used to have amazing conversations and exchange of thoughts and stuff.
Okay, I got it written down. So I want your so the part of my book that I'm reading is and I'm going to take our conversation and I'm probably going to have to reread this whole thing with a sort of a new filter on. But I just started reading this the Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
Song of the Celestial. What do you are you familiar with that? I mean,
Oh
do
yeah, yeah.
you
Great work. But the thing is, again, there are like multiple different translations, and everybody tried to add their own spices in between their own
uh,
understanding. So if
so
you can get the first copy, which is a direct translation, I would suggest that's a good read.
So you're okay. Well, maybe it might tell me the
Let's see the
translation.
thing about Indian scripture and Indian books are I would never recommend anybody to go directly to scripture because when I first decided to read the Vedas myself, I swear to God, nothing made sense to me. I swear to the, whatever God that is, nothing made sense to me. It's like, what are these people even talking about? Because to read those scriptures, you need to have a very open mind. You need
Yeah.
to understand the Hindu way of thinking to begin with. Like the Hindu way of thinking is actually extremely open. It's not constricted the way religions are designed.
Hmm.
So that's why none of it made sense to me. So I would recommend you going through contemporary gurus and their writings. Like Raja Yoga is a very good start to get the understanding of what how a Hindu mind thinks.
Uh,
Once you get that mindset, then you go back to scriptures and everything will start making sense to you.
oh, okay, I see. So
Yeah.
they're like the bridge between the ancient and where we're at. They're kind of like trying to
Yeah.
trying to bridge the
Yeah.
gap.
Yes.
All
And
right.
it's been true throughout Hindu history, like in thousands of years. Like I said, we have the highest record number of self-enlightened people coming out of this school of studies, if you can call it that.
Right.
So throughout history, like every 10 or 15 or 5 years, there is some guy sitting up there who's actually realized the truth, and he's trying to make a commentary on what the ancients wrote or trying to expound upon their work so that they can speak to the generation of that time, because our brain, the way human mind works, changes throughout time, right? Like the
Yeah.
way people understood the world like 100 years ago, it's not the same anymore. We have a complete different understanding of the world. So
True.
there has to be contemporary gurus, to so to speak, who can actually make sense of the no. See, when I say there has to be contemporary, I'm not discrediting the old knowledge. I'm just saying like the language changes, the way we communicate those ideas, that changes.
Yeah, and well, I've noticed reading this book, I have to, it's like a whole new vocabulary, and it's kind of clunky for me to read it because I'm getting to know the technical vocabulary and the meaning behind it, and sometimes I get lost in the details, and yeah, it's like training my mind before I can understand what it's actually trying to say. It's a lot of details I'm trying to work out too. So I understand what you're saying. It's probably a really good idea.
And what's really funny is like we have this tradition of not tradition. I've been seeing a lot of Hindus coming out and saying I'm an ex-Hindu and I don't believe in that nonsense anymore and stuff like that. I used to be one. They
Yeah,
they 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 read through all Dawkins and Hitchens and Sam Harris's of the world and think, okay, this is the cool thing. But
yeah.
what these people should realize is that atheism is an absolutely valid position in Hinduism. A yogi will tell you it's better to not believe in anything than blindly believing things that doesn't really make sense.
Man, I am so glad you came on because you are opening my mind and shattering my own assumptions because I mean, how am I supposed to know really? Because until I talk to somebody with experience like you, I'm just whatever I hear, and I'm just trying to figure it out. But yeah, you're really telling me like the truth, and I need it so that I can think correctly.
Thank you,
That's
David.
awesome.
It's amazing talking to you too. Like I
Yeah.
can see if somebody, try. Let's see what happens when I talk to generally people from different religions is they're already so set in their minds that this is the truth that
Hmm.
they're always trying to look at outside ideas. I mean, sorry, fight back outside ideas instead of
Hmm.
even trying to give it a fair shot. You know,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah,
becomes
it's
very
really sad.
frustrating. Yeah,
Well,
no,
it's
so it becomes like a very frustrating losing brain cells kind of a deal when you talk to one of them.
yeah, TikTok's great for stirring up conflict. Oh my goodness. Like I am really upfront with I'm not. So I have my, little faithist teaching thing on the background, but I'm really upfront. Like, I'm not trying to persuade anybody of anything. And on the flip side, I don't appreciate being the target of persuasion. I'm just wanting to have conversations with people. That's it. That's all I want to do. And this has been a great conversation.
You will actually see that more and more people are going to go this direction. That is the reason why, I heard a yogi talking about how the age of the internet will be the age where all the religions die, because
Oh
there is
man,
free available information. You cannot fear people into getting following your faith. You
I
cannot, yeah.
I don't think I will live long enough, but I really would love to live long enough to see religions die, like mass death of religion.
And they already have, even the most faithful people out of the world. Deep
Hmm.
down, they have questions. Deep down, they are like, okay, is it even true? So you can actually say faith has already, and that is the reason why they are fighting so hard to keep the faith alive, because even in their own minds, it's kind of dying.
Hmm. It's
So they
scary.
think that they think that if they fight the non-believer, this is how you show your allegiance to the
Hmm.
one creator or whatever they think about.
Uh, I mean, we can probably both admit that at some point when we were questioning the beliefs that we were born into, that it can be really scary to question that because that's your identity. That's what your culture, your community, your family, your eternal purpose in life, and you start questioning it, it can be really scary. So I understand why people are fighting against the idea of questioning, but it's so necessary for growth to question and just get outside your box and just not be
This
scared
is
anymore.
this is why I keep telling people not to read the scriptures directly, because the
Hmm.
ancient Hindu scriptures, they'll make you question everything. They'll be like, what are you even doing here? Like, what is the what is this fake role that you're playing here? They'll
Yeah.
make you question everything. So you need to have like a modern bridge that can connect those gaps for you.
Well, I'll look up
It's,
that book if
I
it's
think it's
like.
available free. You can download it online.
Oh,
It was written like 100 or so years ago.
okay.
Vivekananda is the one of the first persons who came to the US for the World Congregation of Religions,
Hmm.
and he surprised everybody by calling, he addressed people as brothers and sisters, which was the first time somebody addressed the whole world as brothers and sisters. And now
Hmm.
you will see all the Christians and Muslims of the world going around trying to achieve that same effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should look him up. He's a very good bridge to the old and the new.
Yeah. All right. I will. I will do that.
All right, man.
What was your name again? Can I hear you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Vimal, Vimal, Vimal.
Bimal.
Yeah, V for
Okay.
Victor, victory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was a real big honor and pleasure to talk with you, but I think I'm gonna end this live. I think I've been going for like almost over 2 hours now, and I think I'm gonna
All right, bro. All right. Thank you so much.